next few minutes, including, we love having Chuck Cooperstein on, voice of the Mavericks, sports broadcaster, sports personality, and as insightful as anyone you can talk to about anything sports. Chuck, thanks for your time. I know we mainly discuss football with college football and the NFL, Cowboys and whatever, but I saw your tweet about Chris Woodward. You made the comment, it seemed like he and his staff made the game harder for players than it already is a hard game or a hard game needed to be. Do you feel like they were too analytical? What was that mainly about?
I had been told I was out of the ballpark, and I haven't gone to the ballpark very much this year, and I don't know Chris Woodward at all. But I did go to the ballpark the other night, and I did ask some people out there about, just what it's all about, what's going on with this team. And because I had earlier said, I always got the feeling that Chris Woodward, he was he seemed like he was the right guy for the job, but the results did not follow from that. So what was going on? And, one thing that I was shown was how detailed their scouting reports were for every game. And it's like, there are 162 of these, man. This is not like football, where you're playing once a week and you got, just something to really focus in on. You're playing 162, and every night it's a different pitcher, a different starting pitcher. I mean, I guess a lot of the relievers could pitch on consecutive nights, and it just seemed like there was a lot of the information overload that's going on now. Listening more and reading more today, how much of this was Woodward, and I think it was some, because I think he brought a lot of it with him from the Dodgers. But I do think a lot of this is coming from up top, and which speaks to a larger issue in baseball, to where there is no sport in which the on-field leader is less consequential than in baseball. And it seems like in this case, we heard John Daniels and Chris Young yesterday say how apparently there wasn't the same discipline in preparation, that hitters' meetings had become kind of optional. And I think maybe Woodward was trying to back off on some of that, and maybe John Daniels and Chris Young said that you can't back off on that. So I'm not sure where this all is, other than to say that I think for a veteran team like the Yankees or the Dodgers, or even the Padres or the Astros, that stuff might work. But for a lot of young guys, I'm not saying we're in the Rudy Jaramillo era of see ball, hit ball, but some of this is actually true. They can't go up there with such a cluttered mind. It's like, David, when you play golf, right? I mean, you can't have 5 different swing thoughts when you're at the play, when you're over the ball. I mean, you got to have one and go with it. And I have a feeling there was too much of that was going on with this team, especially offensively. And then, you get to the issues of where I think Woodward probably got himself into bigger trouble was the fact, not so much that they were 6-24 in one-run games, but that they were situationally unaware so often that comes back on the manager at some point, that these guys are not prepared to make the right plays. And, record aside, you have to be able just to play the game the right way, for lack of a better Larry Brown phrase. You just have to be able to do that, and maybe they just didn't do that often enough either.
Chuck, this has been another tumultuous offseason for college football, and things are changing. What do you think the end game ultimately is?
I wish I knew. I mean, I'm open to all suggestions as to where it winds up, but I think that there's going to be, I think, some type of at some point some type of restrictions on the collectives, to where they can't be involved in the recruiting, because I think that's where it got out of hand. That's where it's completely gotten out of hand. Once you're on campus and once you've done your thing on campus, then absolutely you should be entitled to the money. But to be recruited like that way, it just seems like that's, we are in the wild, wild west, and there was a program about 100 miles north of you that got shut down because of things that are going on right now that now are considered legal. I mean, somewhere all the SMU people are saying, "Hey, told you so." We were just 35 years ahead of our time.
It's interesting because even today, Brian Fisher, who covers college football, had a couple of notes that now the NCAA looking to approve that boosters can now pay for meals for players on occasion. Now, that's the key part, on occasion. And then also that schools' athletic departments can pay for student football players parking tickets.
Well, I think, Paul, you asked the question, where does it go? I mean, I don't think there's an immediate answer, but I do think at some point there is going to be a split between the FBS and everybody else, and whether there's a further split between the FBS and the FC and the Power Five and the Group of Five. I don't know about that, but there does need to be order. There needs to be someone in charge. Who name your commissioner, Oliver Luck, Tim Brando. I don't care. Okay. Somebody has got to be in charge and set the tone for what college football is going to be.
Yeah, and there has been so much, and now UCLA and USC, of course, a little over a month ago after the Texas-Oklahoma story. And you do hear about there's going to be a split, and there's also the possibility of the two super conferences, whether it's the Big Ten, SEC, which would be nobody else. If you were asked to vote in a national championship college football, Paul, but it included two conferences with 16 or 20 teams, would that be a legitimate national championship to you?
Can't be a vote. It can't be a vote. I mean, that's why you've got to have an expanded playoff, and you needed an expanded playoff from the get-go. I mean, you've got to forget the notion of the bowls. The bowls are done. The bowls are an anachronism. They really are. And, I did see ESPN had that piece about 3 weeks ago or so, where they talked about using the bowls to begin the season. I'd be in favor of that. That works for me. I've always been of the opinion that postseason play is based on what you did during the regular season. It's in effect a reward for an excellent season. Whether that's 8 or 9 wins, you tell me what that is. 7-5 doesn't quite cut that for me in a 12-game season. So, you have to be able to expand the bowls. They had it. They really did have it right last year. Bob Bowlesby and Craig Thompson, the Mountain West, and those people who worked on the notion of the play. Greg Sankey at the SEC. The 12-team system worked. You had the buys for the best teams in the first round, and you have the possibility of very intriguing games in the first round, on campuses leading in. And to me, that made a lot of sense. That the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 were stupid enough to be so short-sighted. And that's the issue in college football, period. Everybody is looking at in their own fiefdom and really in their own silo, and there's no one to look at the big picture, which is why you have to have someone look at the big picture for them.
Yeah, Chuck, I think it's kind of funny how college football fans really have, for my entire life, said we would like a playoff system that is more befitting the quality of the sport, and the college football powers that be continually come up with things that have nothing to do with that. There's no more disconnect between fans and any sport, professional, college, or whatever, than there are between college football fans and the people who make the decisions.
I cannot disagree with that at all. And to take it even a step farther and really out of football, you saw the comments late last week from Greg Sankey at the SEC about trying to expand March Madness, trying to expand it to 96, which is absolutely absurd. It is nothing but a money grab, so that the ninth place team in the ACC or the 10th place team in the SEC could have a bid. And basically, what you would do is you would emasculate the NIT, which has been somewhat emasculated anyway. But there are very few things in sports that are right. They've come close with the conference tournament, with the NCAA tournament when they expanded it to 68. Yet somehow that first 4 in Dayton works. right? It never looked like it would work, but it does work. But there's something that leads into the tournament starting on that Thursday and going for 3 weekends. You go to 96, you can't do that. I mean, it becomes even longer played out. So, don't mess with that. And yet again, it's a conference commissioner or conference commissioners, looking at their own world and trying to see what's best for them and not necessarily what's best for the sport.
What are your thoughts on Dave Miranda, Chuck?
I think he's brilliant. I've always thought he was brilliant. I thought 2 years ago, going 2-7, that everything was so bizarre that year. It was like you just completely wiped that out. It doesn't count. But you've seen his work as a defensive coordinator, at LSU and at Wisconsin before he got the Baylor job, and he just seems like a really bright guy, and one that is. He seems he has his thing. He has his style of doing things the way he wants to do it, and he's going to stand with that. But at the same time, I think he's going to listen to his players, and I think he's going to take all the information in that he can and try to make the best decisions for his team. Just look at what he's done with the quarterback and what happened with Bohannon leaving, and Bohannon, he's going to actually start for South Florida this year, which is really pretty cool. But he plays Chapin in the Big 12 championship game. He plays him in the Sugar Bowl, and he wins with them and him, and it just seems like he's taken everything good that he has learned in his many stops as an assistant coach and has brought it with him to Baylor. And the fact that, Matt Rule got this thing out of the gutter and he built it back up. And Dave, I think, has taken that, and he's continuing on, and I think going to even build farther on what Matt Rule did. And, obviously, Art Browse in the middle part of last decade before that, he had a great run. Things went crazy, and it had to get built back up. But, Baylor's found a way to build it back up. And obviously the coaches that have been there deserve a tremendous amount of credit for that.
Does he remind you of anyone else as a head coach? He's been like Tony Dungy's been here. And Dungy's kind of compared, you don't have to be a guy that has all the emotions. Lovie Smith's not a very emotional guy, at least on the outside. Landry wasn't, right? I'm not trying to compare him to Landry, but are those some of the ones that kind of come up?
The Tony Dungy one's a really good one. But what's even more interesting is that all the guys you mentioned are defensive guys.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And you think about that. Yeah.
I find that very interesting. And maybe just there's the need to always keep your wits about you when things are flying around you at 100 miles an hour. You've just got to be able to take the step back and say, hey, everything's going to be okay, right? And so it's interesting that so many coaches get hired, primarily offensive coaches, because athletic directors or in the NFL, owners and general managers, they want to see points scored. That makes people happy. But ultimately, do you need to win? You got to find a way to win. And I'm still of the belief, especially even in this modern era of football, which is so offensively skewed, that defense does win championships. And it's interesting to me, if you look at the Big 12, which has been criticized for years and years for playing absolutely no defense at all. You saw the turnaround last year and what was happening in the league last year. That the best teams were the teams that played really good defense, and it sure looks like as we get ready to start this season that the teams that are considered to be the best in the Big 12 are ones that are the better defensive teams.
Chuck, what is your feeling about your beloved Florida Gators and Billy Napier?
I don't know. I mean, he's obviously been given a blank check to spend as much money as he wants to do everything with the program, both on the field and off. So much of this year is going to be about Anthony Richardson and can he stay healthy? He was pretty good last year when he played, but he wasn't very healthy. I think this is a transition year. I think they'll be okay. They won't be great. I just have to hope that he will be able to recruit at the level necessary in that league. And when you consider who you're recruiting against, in your recruiting against Alabama and Georgia and LSU and A&M and Auburn and all of these schools, that he's got to be able, especially with Florida State down. Miami looks like Cristobal is trying to do some damage and trying to do the old Howard Schnellenberger, the state of Miami, 4 hours radius around Miami, and Napier's trying to do that too on some level around Gainesville. But you've always got to get into South Florida on some level. But the thing that's so interesting to me now, guys, is that with the transfer portal, how much does high school recruiting really matter? Coaches want players that they're going to be able to win with, right? And you're more likely to be able to win with someone who's actually played as opposed to someone that has not. Which again speaks to what A&M, their recruiting year this year has everybody all excited, and they're in the preseason top 10. And I wish we weren't having these polls, but we have them. But I just look and see around the country. Like I look at USC and I see them add Caleb Williams, and I see them add Jordan Addison, the Blitnikoff winner, and I'm thinking, how can they not be better? Mm-hmm. How can they not be better than actually going out and playing freshmen? And so ultimately, while, recruiting clearly matters, I mean, it's never not going to matter. What he does, what Napier does with Florida, and what basically everybody does with their programs from now on, you are going to have to go into the portal in order to get players, because people are going to be there every year that you want.
Yeah, and it's just amazing how think what you mentioned, Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, among others, plus guys that were committed to where Riley was at Oklahoma that made, switch their commitment as well. And you were always one, correct me if I'm wrong, but recruiting was something that you didn't always like to deal with, right? As far as the rankings and all that stuff.
God bless you, David Smoak, for catering to your audience at Sick 365. Sick 365 every day, from October through signing day in February, and keeping track of all that stuff, because Lord knows I don't want that. And again, because at heart I don't really follow high school football all that much. I mean, what I really follow is college football, and tell me what these guys do when they get on campus, and then I can get excited about them. But until then, I just can't do that. It just doesn't. I know how it's important to programs, but it's just not as important to me watching college football, and because I'll watch when we're playing. I'm not necessarily watching in March or February or anything like that.
Coop, it's always great to have you on, man. We appreciate you. How you been? Good?
All good. Ready to roll. NBA schedule comes out tomorrow, and I'll find out what I'll be doing with my life for 5 months.
Luka the MVP this year?
Got a heck of a chance. I mean, look, you got to win at least 50 in order to do that. And if they win 50, they finish in the top 4 or 5 in the West again. And his numbers are better than what they've been. Then I think he'd have a heck of a chance. And I think he does. They play tomorrow in a friendly against Serbia and Jokic. And I'm really interested to watch that game, just to see, again, what he's all about. From what I've seen, the little that I've seen so far, he looks like he's in incredible shape. I mean, he looks like he's really ready to go. I mean, there's not going to be somehow putting on 20 pounds between the Olympics and the start of the season. And with the European Championships starting on September 1st and ending on September 18th, even if they don't get to the finals, basically, he'll be playing for those 2 weeks, September 15th. And then training camp starts on the 27th. He'll be in great shape to go and be ready to play. He'll have played a lot of ball, a lot of competitive ball, and he will be sharpened. And I expect a monster year out of him. I
do too, and I know it's a pleasure and honor. Not honor, it's a pleasure for you to be able to watch him play.
No, it is an honor. Yeah. It literally isn't. Look, I had Dirk for the last 14 years of his career, And that, I get the transition to Luka. There are a lot of guys in my world that never get the chance to broadcast players like that on a nightly basis. So, yes, it is as they say in Congress, the high honor and distinct privilege to be able to broadcast Luka's games every night.
Yeah, think about like the Magic haven't been good for a long time.
Yeah.
They haven't, the guys who broadcast their team haven't gotten to see a superstar like that at all since Shaq and Penny left, really.
Exactly. And not like they haven't had opportunities either, drafting number one. And maybe Paolo Banchero will be that guy. But right now he's just a good-looking rookie.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, Coop. Great to have you on anytime. Cooperstein, Chuck Cooperstein, voice of the Mavericks. And again, just ask a question. He'll spit it out at you, and with the knowledge and experience as well. It's one thing